Okay. Obama said today that he supports pat-downs and stuff. Okay? And he's supposedly a smart guy. But the fact is that they're really, if you think about it, it's not either rational or sane. It's not going to stop terrorist bombs. The only effect, the only real-world effect of what's going on in our airports right now is to terrorize the American people, to make them afraid when they travel, and to make them, shall we say, as a populace, compliant with things the government asks of them. And if you look at history, this is one of the beginning steps that leads to a fascist state, which is an increase in internal controls for the supposed reason of an external threat. But the fact is the government is going along with the so-called external threat idea and convinces the population that you should be afraid, and the way we're going to protect you is take more control over your life. These are not rational, logical propositions. If you examine them carefully, they're really not true statements. So why does the government do this? Well, one of the things we need to recognize is that the people in Washington do not work for the American people. They pretend to work for the American people. And they may, in a lot of cases, not even know who they ultimately work for. But the fact is that the whole set of ideas that exists today around these questions is calculated. What do I mean by that? Well, somebody figured out that it would be a good idea if the American people became compliant for rules of internal security. Now, why? Is this for the benefit of the American people? No. It's for the benefit of a group of people who have been running things for a long time now from outside of our government. And these are people that have managed to corrupt both the Democratic and the Republican parties. And they're very smart, and they're very clever, and they do not have the best interests of the people of the United States at heart. They have totally other agendas. Now you think, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, again, get your head out of your ass and go read some history. Okay? Conspiracies have always existed. Read the books that were written after the 60s and 70s in the United States. Most of the things that the ordinary people were paranoid about actually turned out to be true. The government did all kinds of illegal, unconstitutional things. It turned against its own people. We have the same thing going on now because the ostensible government, and I don't want to build up this point too much, but the real government is the people. The ostensible government is the people in Washington. They stopped working for us some time ago. They put on a show. They like to go and act like it. And the real players, they're not out there in a very obvious position. How do you know they're there? Well, what you do is rather simple in a way. You discard what the politician says. Anybody can say anything. You look at what they do. Not what they say, what they do. And it's what they do that tells the tale. And we have Obama now saying, yeah, we should be afraid and we need to keep these things in place. And the fact is that nobody can stop somebody getting bombs on airplanes. The only reason this works and the only reason this has any meaning is that we are in a pre-fascist condition. And there are people who would like to take us deeper into a fascist condition. And why? Do they like fascism? No, they don't like fascism. They just want to dominate. They think they're smarter, better, whatever it is that drives them to act like a bunch of assholes and use their money and their wealth and their power to control the American populace. And why do they want to control us? Because they're control freaks? No. It's because the cat's getting out of the bag about what the capitalists do to the people. Now, again, I'm not using this in a class sense, in the sort of classical Marxist class sense. People with money like to keep their money, and they didn't always earn it. They got it, but they didn't always earn it. In a lot of cases, they just stole it. And that's what's been going on recently, and more people are catching on to the fact that the banks and the major financial institutions that have caused, they're the cause of it. It's not the people borrowing money. The people borrowed money because somebody went out and convinced them to borrow the money. Because they were going to make money from the money being borrowed. And they did. They made lots and lots of money. These people got very, very rich. You know? But they didn't do it for the best interests of the United States people, the people of the United States. They did it for self-interest, and they've ruined the economy, and they're trying as hard as they can. And this is going on all over the world. You should read Paul Krugman's recent thing on what's going on in Ireland today. You should read that piece in the New York Times, Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. It's a wonderful piece about how the Irish are being fucked by the international banking community. But the fact is that smart people realize that the world economy is going into a new state or condition. It's not going to recover from it for a long, long time. Unemployment is going to increase. More and more people are going to be out of work. Things that have been reliable systems, like systems for the distribution of food and health care, are going to break down under the pressures of the situation we're now in. What's going to happen? Well, one of the things that's going to happen is people are going to get angry. People think the Tea Party thing was angry when people started talking about carrying guns and stuff. Most of the people that think about that don't say anything. They just think, I got to have a gun because I can see it's going to get nasty. They're not stupid, but they're not being led. The people in Washington are not leading the American people. They're not analyzing the situation carefully. They're not being honest about what's going on. And why is this going on? That's because the people behind the scenes who realize the real consequences, the real trends and where they're going, recognize that in order for their way of life to survive the coming crises, they have to be able to control the American population. Because when we get mad about this stuff that's going on, we're not going to sit around and let ourselves be controlled. And to do that control, they need things like internal security. And with me so far? I'm going to come back and we're going to go over this in a little more detail.